Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and I, we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Deaf Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production podcast network. We hope to see you online.
Let's go clean them up.
Welcome to Wake Up Heavy, the world's greatest horror movie podcast.
San Antone, it's really good to see you. It's been a while, but you've been on my mind. I've seen your rolling hills.
On this episode, my weird dad and his friends will be talking about...
Now, a shattering new film from the creator of Taxi Driver. Rolling Thunder. There's a storm brewing in this man. They took his arm, his family, and his soul. His anger is building. And it's going to explode. In Rolling Thunder, rated R.
Hello and welcome to Wake Up Heavy. This is Mark Begley, your host. Joining me once again from the Cult Movies podcast is Anthony King.
Hey Mark, thanks for having me.
On this episode, we will be discussing the 1977 film Rolling Thunder, directed by John Flynn from a script by Paul Schrader and Heywood Gould, based on an original story by Schrader. Rolling Thunder stars William Devane as Major Charles Rane, who has returned to his home in San Antonio after 7 years as a POW in Viet Nam. He realizes quickly that his wife has moved on and that his son barely remembers him. During a robbery of his home, his hand is mangled and his family is slaughtered. Also starring Tommy Lee Jones, Linda Haynes, James Best, and Luke Askew. We will be spoiling the film, so if you haven't seen it yet, track it down and come back to the show later. Anthony, what was your first experience with Rolling Thunder?
I watched it for the first time earlier this year, I think, because that Scream Factory Blu-ray was going out of print, and I think it's out of print as of this recording. Apparently Amazon only had a handful left. Who knows really what it says, only a few remaining or whatever, and so I jumped on it and finally got it and watched it. And of course, I was blown away by it because it had this reputation, from Pure Cinema Podcast. That's probably where I first heard about it on one of their earlier episodes. I'd always wanted to see it. It sounded so great, but for some reason never had searched it out. And then my friend Jacob Knight has a great podcast called Secret Handshake. And their very first episode covers Rolling Thunder, and I was like, well, shoot, now's the time to get that Blu-ray and watch the movie. And so yeah, I was completely blown away. Watched it again for a second time last night, and it was even better. I thought it was a little, I don't want to say slow. There's a part in the movie that I don't love. The first time I didn't love it, but last night it played perfectly. I think it's a perfect film.
I encountered this years ago. I remember the video cover. I'm not sure what I thought it was, because it's a pretty striking cover and image. it seems like it would have been up my alley, but I never rented it. I remember when Quentin Tarantino named his distribution company after it, so it kind of came back up in my mind at that point. That was, I don't know, mid-90s, I guess. Still never tracked it down. And I think I finally was compelled to watch it after I did an episode on Taxi Driver and was looking into missing Paul Schrader films in my viewing experience. And this was one of them. And I believe it was streaming somewhere, or it happened to come up on one of my cable channels. So I watched it and was like, holy shit, this is amazing. I get it. I get why everybody talks about this movie. I can understand why it's a favorite of Tarantino's. And then I watched it probably again within the next year after that. I think I was going to do a why didn't I rent this episode on it, because I didn't rent it when I was younger. Loved it when I saw it, and that's sort of the point of that little sub-series of my show. Watched it for that and was kind of underwhelmed, and I think it may be during the same scene that you're referring to where there's bits and pieces where it does slow down. I was like, well, shoot, what am I going to talk about with this? And forgot about it. Probably watched it again after that and went back to, oh, I should do something on this. It might be more interesting if it's not just me talking about it.
Sure.
I start comparing it in my head to Taxi Driver just because of the Paul Schrader connection, because of the Viet Nam vet connection. It's not dynamic and frantic and Martin Scorsese-ish like Taxi Driver. It's a little more, I don't want to say subdued, but it has more lulls in it than Taxi Driver.
Oh, yeah.
It's an interesting character study of this man and then this woman he ends up dragging along with him on his revenge quest.
So that's what I'm kind of talking about. Like, I'm all for romantic side stories in movies, but this one, I liked how she's like, Major, you have yourself a groupie. He says, what's that? She tells him, well, it's somebody that's fawning all over you, obsessed with you, in love with you. And I think that's all good, but then when they act on it, I don't want this in this movie, but that's on me. I can't picture the movie now without that moment in the hotel and then the moment in the rain when they're in the backseat in the car. I don't love those moments, but I can't picture this movie without them now, because I think that little side story between him and her is crucial because she is trying to save him. It's a fool's mission because it's impossible. And I think this is such a great examination of soldiers coming back home with PTSD. Of course, these guys were held in a prison camp for, 7 years? 2,555 days, right? It's 7 years. It's a long-ass time. And so, of course, these guys are going to be messed up in the head. I asked Bobby, my wife, I said, do you want to watch this with me? And she said, what's it about? I said, this is not the right word, but this is the word I used. I said, it's super fun. So it's sort of this revenge picture. And so we get halfway through and she looks over at me and she's got tears in her eyes and she's like, this is not fun. And it's not. It's a super sad, very depressing movie, which, if anyone has listened to me talk in the past, you would know I love super sad, super depressing movies. And so this is so my shit. I love how melancholic it is. It's such a great examination of men who, and he even says the line, that was back when I was alive. Mm-hmm. And she goes, what do you mean about that?
That's what we used to call the time before we were captured.
He is dead. Tommy Lee Jones is dead in this movie. Nobody seems to realize that. And everybody wants to try to help. I don't think those people are in the wrong because I don't know how I would react. I've never met anyone who was at war for a long time, let alone held in a prison camp. I don't know how I would react also. So I don't think anybody in San Antonio or the soldiers, nobody's wrong here. These are like super complex feelings and emotions that would require a lifetime of medical care to even attempt to help anyone understand what's going on here.
I'm not a fan of automatic love interests in films either. I kind of like it when they buck that and don't have the couple connect, and we don't have a love scene at least.
Right.
And we can even say they actually don't make love in that hotel room. We don't really know. It seems like they have. You mentioned that line about when I was alive, and having just done the episode on Death Dream and how we talked about that returning soldier who is literally dead, and how you could have a film where he's not a zombie, he's just a messed up soldier. The wounded soldier, not maybe physically wounded, but mentally wounded. And I can't even imagine what 7 years of torture would do to a person. So it makes sense. It makes sense that when he comes home, he stays out in the woodshed, that he is still making his bed like they do in the military, and making it and remaking it because it's not perfect. And all those things are still really stuck in his head. And some of the flashbacks of him like sitting on the corner of his bunk, and we have a shot of him now sitting on the corner of his bunk. It's not just hard to readjust, as Dabney Coleman tells him. It's like going to be nearly impossible for him. It feels to me like he's resigned to that a little bit. I'm not the same person. I never will be. What does he say to Linda at one point?
It's like my eyes are open and I'm looking at you, but I'm dead. They've pulled out whatever it was inside of me. I never heard it all after that, and it never will.
And he almost seems okay with that. He doesn't get very emotional when his wife tells him she plans to marry Cliff. He asked, and she said yes, and she's going to go forward with that. And he basically just says,
I don't think I'm up for any more of this.
But he doesn't get angry. He doesn't hit her or strike her or anything like that. The only real thing that he holds on to now that he's back is his son, and tells Dabney Coleman, who I'm a little confused as to what his character is. It seems like he's his psychiatrist.
Yeah, I think so, like a military psychiatrist of some sort.
I'm like, is he his superior or is he his doctor? And maybe it's even both. He says that's the one thing. She can have her divorce and marry Cliff, but I'm not going to lose my son. Which, as I spoiled already in the introduction, he does. These thieves and scumbags decide that $2,555 worth of silver coins should be theirs, and break into his home to retrieve them. Is it because they're silver dollars? It doesn't seem like a whole heck of a lot of money even in 1977.
Yeah.
And I don't know if are they pure silver dollars, or because that would kind of make sense then. They're probably worth a lot more than $2,500. The whole idea of that scene is that he's not going to break, which would be fine if his family didn't then show up. You should be protecting your family, and the easiest way to get rid of these guys is to give them the damn silver dollars and have them be on their way.
That's the one thing I find interesting, is that at no point does he show any remorse or even talk about any sort of feelings of guilt. He does say, I want to go find these guys because they killed my son. He doesn't mention they killed my wife.
I found them. Who? The man who killed my son?
It's true. They pulled the trigger and killed the wife and the son. I'm just imagining, like, if I was in that position, like, I would be so guilt-stricken. I don't even want to think about what I would do to myself in that situation. But here's the scariest thing. In the film, these soldiers come back. First of all, let's talk about just that opening song, which I love. San Antone. It's written by Barry DeVorzen and then sung by Danny Brooks. And it's such a great song. It's beautiful, and it sets the tone perfectly for the movie. Now, the first time I watched this, I was like, what the fuck is this song? Like, what? I don't get it. But having seen it and then watched it again, this is such a sad movie. The song is perfect. The song plays through, the plane lands, they get off, and Tommy Lee Jones, it shows them on the plane after they landed, and he is so dead. He is so dead inside. He says something like, I don't know what to do.
Major, I sure do hate to face all them people.
Billy Devane says,
Put your glasses on, John.
and he does. These guys are robots. They are dead inside. And so here's the scary thing. Back to my point. The scary thing is that it shows how the military, right or wrong, I'm not going to state what I feel. You join the military and they're going to wipe your brain clean because you need to be, if you're going to be fighting like on the front lines, you can't have anything else blocking you up. You have that mission to do. You need to go in and do the thing, whatever, kill, bomb, capture, I don't know, whatever they do. And so these guys, on top of that sort of training brainwashing from the military, have been in a prison camp and tortured for the past 7 years. So they get off the plane. Billy Devane, he's a major. He knows exactly what he has to do. He's a robot. He goes down. He shakes hands. He feigns a smile. Hi, thank you. Glad to be back. And he says a little speech, like 20 words, 25 words in a speech. Throughout the whole movie, I think Billy Devane has such, and I love, was it Knots Landing that he was on? I watched that growing up, and he's so charismatic. He's such a good-looking guy. I really love William Devane, but in this, it's so hard to watch him because he's so sad, and he never gives that big, toothy grin that you really know Billy Devane for. It's all tight-lipped smiles, and it's all fake because this guy is so dead inside. So I just think it's so scary that he comes home and on top of the prison camp is so brainwashed and robotic now because of being in the military for so long, and then doesn't know how to react and doesn't know how to turn on his human side. The Catherine Bigelow movie with Jeremy Renner where he's the bomb diffuser.
Hurt Locker?
I think that's another good examination of PTSD where these guys are just completely dead inside after the horrific things that they've seen overseas. That terrifies me because my life is so filled with love, creation, and art. Like our house, I'm looking around my house. Mark, look behind me. There's paintings and shit from the kids and my wife. It's all over our house. My life is filled with this. And I can't imagine being so dead inside that doesn't cheer me up or make me feel anything. And that's what we get between Tommy Lee Jones and Billy Devane in this movie. That's what I think is so scary and so sad about this, is that these guys are literally dead inside. They have no soul. The only time we see Billy Devane react is when Linda, she's like, I can't do this. And so he swerves off the road with her and then he freaks out on her. That's the first time we see emotion from him. And the second time we see emotion is, I can't even remember. It's just a little tweak of emotion that you see, a tinge. Otherwise, when he's killing or even when he slams his hook down in that dude's hand at his first stop in Mexico, zero. He's a robot. He is so apathetic, and that is terrifying to me.
He knows how to present himself now that he's home, like you said, when he's doing the salutes and the handshakes, and he's pleasant, and I think he gets it a little bit more than Tommy Lee Jones.
Definitely, yeah.
And it could just be their experiences that they had over there, or it could just be how they were in civilian life before. Tommy Lee Jones isn't putting on any appearances when he shows up. He sees his wife run over to him, and he is blank-faced through that whole experience. Devane, as Charles Rane, he's little smiles. I know I need to get through this and act like these people expect me to act. Happy to be home. Happy to see my wife and son. When, like you say, he's really not able to feel, and like he says, he's really not able to feel anything anymore. It makes him do what he does when he's robbed and not give up the money. He doesn't really express any remorse or guilt. The expression of that is, I have to do something about this. The only thing I know how to do is to take these guys out.
My number one discovery of 2021 is Two-Lane Blacktop. And so I think about the driver and the mechanic. They drive around, and in the entire movie, between the two of them, maybe they say 100 words, right, in 2 hours. Who does all the talking, driving the dialogue? It's GTO, Warren Oates. I think the difference between Warren Oates in Two-Lane Blacktop and Linda Forshey in Rolling Thunder is that GTO is like so sad. Like he's running away from something. He doesn't know how to deal with this unspoken thing. And he's just driving from coast to coast, back and forth, because he's basically dead inside, but he's scared and doesn't know how to process it. Where Linda Forshey she's talking because she doesn't want to end up like this dude she's run away with. She sees how messed up Billy Devane is, and one, wants to save him, but two, is scared because she sees this path. She realizes, holy shit, I've run away with this psycho, and he just wants to kill people. Like, he just wants his revenge, and she's scared that she's going to end up dead inside. I don't know, I just think really interesting similarities between Two-Lane Blacktop and Rolling Thunder. Something that Major Charles Rane, so he gets home the night his wife breaks it to him. You know, he asked me to marry him, and so he's sitting there drinking his beer, smoking his cigarette. He says, I don't think I can talk about this anymore. His wife goes, what are you going to do? And he goes, I'm just going to sit here. And that just sits with him for, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 seconds. And that line weighs so heavy on my heart that he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to do anything else. I'm just going to sit here. At this point, he doesn't have some sort of revenge mission in front of him. He's dead inside. He realizes that, and he has accepted that fact. And again, I think that is so sad and so scary when he goes down to Tommy Lee Jones and said, this is what we gotta do. Tommy Lee Jones cracks his little smile, and you're like, holy shit, this guy was dead the entire time, and then he's got this mission from his superior officer.
It's what he was waiting for.
This is what he's waiting for, and this is the only way these two guys know how to survive. And so we're watching it last night. Bobby goes, why are they wearing their uniforms? I said, this is the only way these guys know how to live. That's their new skin. This is how they feel comfortable.
Well, and it goes to that idea that's presented in Taxi Driver as well, and it just makes me think of that wonderful scene in Full Metal Jacket.
Do any of you people know who Charles Whitman was? None of you dumbasses knows. Private Cowboy.
Sir, he was that guy who shot all those people from that tower in Austin, Texas, sir.
That's affirmative. Charles Whitman killed 12 people from a 28-story observation tower at the University of Texas, from distances of up to 400 yards. Anybody know who Lee Harvey Oswald was? Private Snowball.
Sir, he shot Kennedy, sir.
That's right. And do you know how far away he was?
Sir, it was pretty far from that book suppository building, sir.
All right, knock it off. 250 feet. He was 250 feet away and shooting at a moving target. Oswald got off 3 rounds with an old Italian bolt-action rifle in only 6 seconds and scored 2 hits, including a headshot. Do any of you people know where these individuals learned how to shoot? Private Joker.
Sir, in the Marines, sir.
In the Marines. Outstanding.
This is what Tommy Lee Jones and William Devane, as these characters are now. That scene when he goes to pick up Tommy Lee Jones is just amazing. And they're sitting around chit-chatting with his white trash family. And the minute that Devane says, I found him,
I'll just get my gear.
And as you mentioned, that's the only time he's broken a smile in the whole movie. He has been waiting for something to present itself to him in this manner, and this couldn't be more perfect for him. First time I watched it, I probably assumed they're not making it out of Mexico. There's no way. The same thing happens in Taxi Driver. You think, how did this guy survive with a very similar shootout? And so I like to place those movies and hardcore in this, even though hardcore doesn't have any relation really to Vietnam or veterans. There's this central female character that drives the story along. I like to pretend that hardcore is a direct sequel to Taxi Driver, and that George C. Scott's daughter in that is basically Iris Steensma, and she's run off again because you think, this girl, it's like that soldier mentality. This is what was created. Sport created this prostitute from this 12-year-old girl. How is she going to survive back home in this square community? Linda Forshait in this, in Rolling Thunder, isn't quite like those characters. It's that the male protagonists' angel on their shoulder, the thing that's driving them forward but also keeping them grounded a little bit,
right,
tends to not work, at least in those two movies, Taxi Driver and this one. That violence is going to spill out. It's interesting to see that through line of these women.
When he leaves her at the motel, that's a very human moment, in my opinion, and we'll talk about Schrader here in just a second, but uncharacteristic, I feel, of Paul Schrader, because you would assume this man hates women. You know, if you follow him on Facebook, you would also assume this man hates women. But I love that moment where he's a gentleman, he leaves her a fat stack of cash, and then he has his uniform on and he goes to Tommy Lee Jones and they go do their thing. And she wakes up and she experiences sadness because she feels sad for this man that she had fallen in love with. But she's also experiencing relief, like, oh, God, finally. At least I'm not going to be going around looking for these killers, risking my life for this asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I'm grateful, like, that she gets out of it. Now, the very ending, you know, after the shootout, these two guys are extremely wounded. It's ambiguous enough that, yes, at the end of the movie, they're alive, but are they going to... What's waiting for them when they walk out of this brothel? What's waiting in these streets? Are these guys like, was it just them, or are they part of a huge gang, or this, that, or the other thing? How are they going to cross the border back home? And ultimately, it's sad because he got his revenge. He accomplished his mission, but that's not going to make either of these men feel alive. Like, if anything, this could, especially with the Tommy Lee Jones character, this made him feel good, so who's to say he's not going to do it again?
Right.
Again, that's another really scary moment. Now, let's talk about Paul Schrader for a second. I think Paul Schrader is one of the greatest screenwriters of the 20th century. I think Paul Schrader and 21st century. I think Paul Schrader is one of the great directors of the 20th and 21st century. I do not care for him as a human being because I think he says some really, really gross things. He's very talented. But like, I think Woody Allen is a great example. Think what you will. You could watch Woody's movies and think, this guy is processing some real difficult shit in his head. You like if you watch Manhattan. I think with Paul Schrader, you watch Rolling Thunder, you watch Taxi Driver, you watch, you know, some of his early screenplays. This is an angry young man, late 20s, early 30s, writing these movies. If you've ever read Raging Bulls and Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, whichever way it goes. Great book. No one is painted in a good light in that book, by the way. Paul Schrader is real. He's got some stuff in his head, man. Like,
I got some bad ideas in my head.
He's a sad and angry man. As consumers of his entertainment, we're lucky enough that he's able to process that, or at least get that on the page and then on the screen. And so a lot of his movies I love, and most of his movies I love. I think he's a creative genius. This is no different. This is a script from a very angry young man. This is a revenge fantasy. This is, if you read up on Paul Schrader and then you watch this movie, you're like, this guy's just writing out his fantasies, and it's kind of scary. For me, that doesn't take anything away from the movie. The movie's still great because it's got this central performance from Billy Devane, which is untouchable. He's so fantastic in this movie.
When I think of Paul Schrader, I think of a lot, and I don't know why I make this connection, but I think about rock stars of the 60s who were supposed to be anti-establishment, going against the grain, anti-government, all this stuff, but usually they were really awful to their women, quote unquote.
Right.
They still had that pre-war or World War II idea about men and women. So you hear stories about so-and-so beaten this way. I mean,
right.
As progressive as they may have been politically, there was still this strange, old-timey idea about relationships. And for some reason, Paul Schrader fits into that similar slot for me. He, for one thing, doesn't write women very well. And the characters, they're kind of the objects of the story. They don't have agency, or they don't have, it's almost like they don't have their own lives. I mean, with Taxi Driver specifically, you've got the whole Madonna whore thing. Yeah, they may have lines of dialogue, and they may have scenes, and they may have actors behind them who portray them really well. But when you get to the meat of it, what does Linda Forshey offer in this film? We're not really concerned about what ends up happening with her after all this. We're more curious about what's going to happen to these two soldiers. And you're right, they could very well just get shot down as they leave the saloon. The movie ends at the end of the gun battle, and they've quote-unquote won. And I think it was a good idea that this happened, that the movie that he wrote didn't actually happen. And I can say the same thing about Taxi Driver too, at least parts of it. This was supposed to be, he calls it an anti-fascist film. His original story, where this guy comes back and kind of indiscriminately kills Mexican people because he was a racist when he went in. Nothing about his experience as a POW changed that. And he's a racist now. And it's just one darker-skinned people or another that are going to get it. And that's very loaded, just like his original idea of having the gangsters and Taxi Driver be all black. And Martin Scorsese was like, yeah, dude, I don't think we can do that. You know, that's just, it's too much. Because you're going to have people that go, oh, this is okay because they're Mexican, or because they're black, or because they're Asian, and won't get maybe the idea that, no, this is bad. It's that whole idea, and I see it pop up on Twitter every other day, about representation in a film doesn't mean that's what the artist is, either the director or the writer or the actor is promoting.
Right.
You can have awful characters in your movies. It doesn't mean that we're glorifying their behavior. However, a lot of people don't separate that when they're watching movies. And Travis Bickle is the cabbie hero instead of, oh, he's just lucky that he killed the right, quote unquote, the right people. That he killed gangsters and not just some guys up in a hotel room. So I'm sort of happy that that's not what we got here, just indiscriminate killing of people from another culture. You still get little bits and pieces of that throughout the film. We still have some stereotyped characters when he goes down to Mexico, but I don't think it's as loaded as he originally intended. It's hard to not feel sympathy for a POW or for any soldier returning home. He's already got that sympathy, so you're going to go along with whatever he's doing and maybe not say, okay, yeah, that's not cool. That's really not cool to just start blowing people away.
When I was trying to think of the other moment where he actually shows a little bit of emotion, is when he's in Dabney Coleman's office. He says, I had everything worked out.
But nothing going the way I planned.
That is a human being. That's not a soldier. That's a human being saying, I had these plans, I had these dreams for when I got home from this horrific nightmare, and nothing's what I thought it would be. Again, that's a really sad moment. It shows, there is obviously a little bit of human left in him. But of course, when his child and wife are murdered, that goes out the window and he just becomes the dead robot that he is. Back to Schrader, he wanted to be John Milius. He idolized John Milius. And so if you watch, especially Taxi Driver, especially Rolling Thunder, this is a dude who idolized John Milius and is trying to mimic his writing. Another guy who I too am human and have a heart, and I feel bad for him with his stroke or whatever it was. And he too was a creative genius, but I'm not along his political lines. He's a little too fascist for me, if you will. So if you watch Rolling Thunder, or if you watch, or like you study the character of Travis Bickle, these are written by a dude who idolized John Milius. Whereas like Milius, his characters, he could write sort of maybe right-wing assholes, but they were still human. I feel like Schrader's characters are really scary, and thank God you had John Flynn, thank God you had Marty Scorsese, who are responsible filmmakers, and like you said, maybe didn't put as much as Schrader's fascism into their final scripts, their shooting scripts, as Schrader had intended. And I'm not saying Paul Schrader is a fascist. I think he's a man who has to process a lot of thoughts and emotions and feelings. But I think it's funny after reading that book, having seen Rolling Thunder, having seen Taxi Driver, and then reading that this is a guy that idolized John Milius. I was like, oh my God, obviously.
Because he actually states that he was making an anti-fascist film and it became a fascist film. I get what he's saying about anti-fascist in that the character's racism is a problem and it's because of these things. I just don't think that people, maybe the general audience member, would get that, and why I'm thankful it didn't happen. I don't see it as fascist, though. What he's doing isn't, well, I guess if I look at it, it is set up. These are bad people that killed his wife and son. So in this case, revenge is okay. You do still leave with that idea. So maybe that's what his point was. Like, you're cheering for Devane and Tommy Lee Jones at the end. You want them to kill the Texan and Automatic Slim. And
at the home invasion, you have this Mexican fellow who seems like he's running the show. But then who's the big bad when it comes down to it? It's the white guy. It's the blonde white guy. To whoever's credit, John Flynn, Paul Schrader, I don't know, was it in the script? I have no idea. The one that is harder to kill is the white guy, for what it's worth.
I do wonder if it was just an all Mexican gang or if that was changed. I love that it's James Best and Luke Askew. For one thing, Luke Askew has got an awesome name. A real name, and in the movie, his name, Automatic Slim, is just fantastic. Slim. And then seeing James Best in here, when I first watched it, I was like, wait a minute, I know that face.
Oh, shit, he's from Dukes of Hazzard?
He's Roscoe P. Coltrane. Oh. I always think, though, when I see him that he's, what's his name from Beverly Hillbillies? I get those two guys confused all the time. And he is just slimy and wonderful in this. And Luke Askew is great. He pops up every once in a while in these great 70s movies, but the one thing that I always think of him being in is The Beast Within. Speaking of horror movie association, we've got poor Franklin from Texas Chainsaw Massacre in here as Tommy Lee Jones's brother-in-law.
With the mustache and the glasses. Can I get one of them cigars?
Can I have one of them cigars? How's that? I say, can I have one of them cigars? Oh, you bet you, boy.
And even Grandpa I've seen in a couple of things. The racist Grandpa won't buy anything that those Japs make.
Oh, good Lord, yeah.
There are those bits of that racism in there, but it's really more, this is the world they're coming from. I haven't read a ton about Schrader. Doing my research for Taxi Driver, it seems like he was the script is written, whatever happens to it when you guys make it is what happens to it. That he seems like he's kind of hands off. Robert De Niro would call him and say, hey, do you think Travis would wear this? Well, what do you think? Do you think he would? Yes. Well, you're the character, so yeah. Or would he say this? Well, what do you think he would say? It's interesting to me that he seemed bothered so much by the changes in this particular movie. There's a couple of screenwriters, and I can think of one off the top of my head, who would bemoan just about every movie that was made from a script of theirs. It's not the movie I wrote. And it's like, dude, if you're a screenwriter, you got to figure that out at some point, that's what happens in movies.
That's the job. You write the thing, you put it out, and then you move on.
Yeah, and what happens to it, director, producer, studio, if you can't get in your head that at some point somebody higher up than you is going to require a change, I don't know what to tell you. You're doing the wrong job.
You write the words, they bought your words. That's the deal. That's the contract you sign. As a writer myself and a playwright, that's once the script goes out, once it's in the director's hands, it's their show, whatever.
Yeah, so I'm surprised because it seems like Schrader understood that. Not to repeat myself over and over again, I am happy those changes were made. It would be an interesting film either way. I just think a lot of people would have misconstrued the message.
At the time, it still would have been received well or fine. Maybe with those original script ideas, it probably wouldn't have aged like it does. Because I logged it last night on Letterboxd and looked around like everybody I followed that had seen it, it was 4.5, 5 stars. Everybody.
I saw the same thing.
Everybody loves this movie. And I think everybody should love this movie. My wife loved this movie. I'm a huge fan of hardcore. I love that movie. But a lot of people who maybe saw it years ago and then revisited it 10 years, 15 years later, and were like, I don't know, I still love hardcore.
Well, that's a good thing, because we'll be talking about that one pretty soon, too. That whole aging thing is interesting to me because I'm old, so I lived through the 70s as a kid, but this is something that I could actually see having been shown on TV on a Friday or Saturday night with some cuts. Wouldn't require too much. Well, except when you get to the whorehouse, I guess.
There's a little bit of nudity. It's not gory. You don't see the mangled hand. You don't see the wife and kid get shot. That's off camera. There's not a lot of language in it. And there's just that one like shot of Tommy Lee Jones's girl topless. But other than that, it's not like a filthy movie at all.
I could imagine having caught this back then and going, oh, what's this movie?
I have this list on Letterboxd. I call them Sunday afternoon dad movies. If you go check out my Letterboxd, I have a whole, like, it's supposed to be funny, but description of what I mean by Sunday afternoon dad movies. I feel like Rolling Thunder fits into that category. This would have been something maybe I caught on WGN, on a Sunday afternoon, or TNT on a Sunday afternoon. Probably not TNT, maybe whatever was before the CW, and it was the WB, CW, whatever it was before. They buy the package of movies, and this is what they have to show. This is what they have to play with. I feel like this would have been one of those that would have been on a Sunday afternoon.
It goes along with those 70s and early 80s revenge films. Death Wish and Dirty Harry movies were on all the time when I was growing up. That's how I saw them first, was on TV. So kind of surprised I never encountered this until I was an adult.
Earlier this year, I did an episode of Film Feast on Tony Scott's Revenge. Or was it Revenge? I can't remember what the hell I did. I watched Revenge for something. I had that in the back of my mind as I was watching Rolling Thunder for the second time last night. Like, that would be a good double feature. I feel like, good revenge plots you're dealing with. Anthony Quinn in Revenge is Hispanic, and anyways, I thought that'd be a fun. There's not as much finger sucking in Rolling Thunder as there is in Revenge. A lot of finger sucking in Revenge.
When it comes close to doing hardcore, I may do a Taxi Driver, Rolling Thunder hardcore triple feature and just mess up my mind completely.
That sounds like 3 very sad movies, but that sounds like a delightful time to me. I think everybody loves a good getting ready for the mission montage, and this isn't necessarily a montage. There are a few smash cuts or whatever. He gets out of the hospital and he knows exactly this is what's going to happen. Dabney Coleman drives him home, just dropped me off by the mailbox. He gets his mail, goes inside. By the way, a little touch, again, how much I love Billy Devane. He just does this. His little suitcase is tipped over when he gets out of the car, and he doesn't bend over to straighten it out. He just gives a little flip with his foot and flips the handle up. Little classy move there. I love that. But anyways, he gets in the house, looks around, and immediately goes to the shed and with his grinder and sharpens up his hook. What a great weapon that is. And then, he's got his shotgun in the vise, and he saws the shotgun, the thing off the shotgun, and getting his blues, his soldier blues, and packing his little suitcase. A good little getting ready for the mission montage there.
Which again harkens back to Taxi Driver, and also even First Reformed in a way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Taxi Driver and First Reformed. I mentioned that on that episode I did with Mike. They eat the same thing. They write in their diary. I'm surprised Charles Rane doesn't have a diary in this to scribble in.
I think that would humanize him a little too much for that. I don't know if I want to see that, because Charles Rane is dead inside. I can't see him. I don't want to see him as a human. The scene after they swerve off the road and they get physical with each other, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see emotion from him. Journaling or having a diary really makes someone human, because they're obviously trying to process thoughts and emotions.
And that fight scene seems out of character for him up to that point. You mentioned him coming home, and I love it when he does go into the house first and just stands there for it feels like it's a minute. It's probably only 10 or 15 seconds of screen time, but he's just standing there. He still has his sunglasses on, looks at the sink where his hand was destroyed, and then boom, moves on. We've alluded to the hook, and anybody maybe who's listening to this that hasn't seen the movie, he gets his hand destroyed in a garbage disposal and gets a prosthetic that he utilizes amazingly well in this, and I don't know how long he had to practice that. We see a little bit of practice in the film with him trying to put cigarettes back into a box, but by the time he is back home and putting shells into his gun, he seems to have mastered it pretty well. We get to see it utilized with Lopez, the first character that he encounters in Mexico, just right through his hand, and then with Lucas Skew as Automatic Slim in the second encounter in Mexico. I just like how quick and succinct the fights are, which goes to his training. We don't have these over choreographed fight scenes. Somebody we've kind of left out of this is Cliff, the new man in Charles Rane's wife's life. He says, yeah, all of us guys over there knew our wives were going to move on. That's fine. He doesn't seem to really harbor any resentment towards her or Cliff for that, but he does get that little jab in.
But I'd really appreciate it if you didn't call my kid a runt.
Cliff is just, I won't. I mean, what else are you going to do? You're going to pretty much do whatever this guy asks you to. Like Cliff says, I have no idea how you survived this, and I know I wouldn't have. I can't even handle hearing about it. And he's a police officer. He's scared to hear about the torture that Rane went through, and I love that he makes him torture him. You could take it a couple different ways. Is he doing this because he needs to feel that? Or is he doing this to tell Cliff, this is basically what you've done to me by stealing my wife away? Are these the plans? You mentioned earlier that other bit of emotion he shows is when he tells Dabney Coleman things aren't going as planned. And I'm thinking, well, what was his plan when he got home? Because as he's saying, he knows that his wife's probably moved on. His son doesn't remember him. What were those plans? That he would come back, everything would be the same, and at some point he would feel alive again, or what?
Right.
Now higher, man, higher till you hear the bones starting to crack. That's it. Higher!
He's like, you're not doing it right. I never thought that, it never occurred to me that maybe this is Rane torturing, quote, torturing Cliff, saying, this is what you did to me. Now I'm going to make you visualize exactly what you're doing to me. I always thought that he's so dead inside, this is all he knows anymore. He knows pain, and the way he talks about, you learn to love the rope. You learn to love the rope. That's how you beat him.
That's how you beat people who torture you. You learn to love them. And they don't know you're beating them.
That is another heartbreaking piece of dialogue. And honest to God, I can't see Paul Schrader writing something like that. That sounds like a Milius line to me, really. But it's so sad. He doesn't know anything but pain. He doesn't know anything but rope. I don't know about you, but I don't feel any sort of sadness. I feel more you got what's coming to you when Cliff meets his demise. It's like, of course, this is like a very big movie trope. It happens all the time. When someone is led by emotion to go kill, it's not going to end well for them. It ends, I don't want to say ends well, it ends with him living, Rane, that is, because he is already dead inside. It reminds me of if a drunk is, and I only bring this up because this has happened to my dad. My dad was a recovering alcoholic for many years. When he was a drunk, he would drink 2 bottles of schnapps and then a case of beer and drive down 45 minutes to this truck stop and then back. All that booze would be gone in an hour and a half. He'd drink that while driving. Anyways, on one of those occasions, he got into a horrible car wreck and ended up breaking his neck. And luckily he wasn't paralyzed, but just broke his neck. This was before I was born, but the reason he survived, the doctors told him, is because he was so drunk that upon impact, he just went limp. He didn't tense up at all. He was so drunk he couldn't tense up at all to try to stop himself. And a lot of times when you're in a car accident, that's why you get so hurt, because your natural reaction is to try to stop yourself from moving every which way. In that sense, in Rolling Thunder, Charles Rane is so dead and so numb inside that he can go on. It is a revenge mission. He can accomplish this because he's so numb inside. Whereas Cliff, he's led by anger and frustration. He lost the woman that he loved. He raised this boy. And I think he does care about Charlie. And he's trying, like Linda Forshey, trying to save Charlie, trying to save him from himself. His emotions get the best of him, and he does this stupid thing and runs after this dude. What are you doing, guy? One, you're in Mexico. You're in a land you're not even familiar with, and you're chasing strangers. You don't know what's going to happen. So that's why he dies and Charlie doesn't.
I find that little side story odd, and I was trying to put it in place in my mind as to what does this accomplish. When he visits Rane in the hospital, he's like, man, I'd sure like to find those guys. Well, then why are you trying to stop him from doing it? He's going to achieve the goal much easier than you are. First of all, he knows who to look for, because they basically say,
Slim, you and T-Bird, you take the wagon. Emilio and I will meet you in Nuevo Laredo.
There it is?
Yeah.
Who they're going to meet and where they're going to go when they kill his wife and family and think that they've killed him. And that's why they're so open about their plans, because they intend to kill everybody here. But he has that information and you don't. If you really want these guys dead, why would you care if he goes and does it? So is he trying to stop him, or is he trying to help him, or what? Or become involved, or take care of it himself? It's sort of muddled in a way.
Rane does, even though he's dead inside, he does go on a little reconnaissance mission. He knows that these guys are hiding out at this brothel. Charlie is way more careful about it than Cliff is, and Larson Driscoll is so great at being John Sayles in this movie.
That's who he's reminding me of.
He looks like John Sayles. This would be a perfect role for John Sayles, too. Although, I don't know if I could stomach seeing John Sayles be killed, because I love the man so much. This guy does the part so well. I don't know if we're intended to feel emotional about his demise or not. I don't think we are, because I think it's so blatantly stupid of him, of what he's doing, just running after these dudes, that it's almost like, of course you're going to get shot. Of course you're going to get killed. he's not the main character anyways. We know Charlie Rane is going to get the final say here, but yeah, I just thought it was interesting, again, watching it last night. I was like, good, he's dead.
It's part of the film that doesn't really track well with me. It seems unnecessary to have that. If he had encountered Rane at some point, maybe, and tried to talk him out of it or whatever, it might have a little bit more impact on the story. Otherwise, it's just a swift end to a really bad decision. Thank you for saying that about John Sayles, because I'm like, I know this guy from stuff, but I looked him up and I'm like, I don't think I've seen anything else that he's been in. Why does he look so familiar to me?
My wife is listening to this. I'm sorry I said it's a fun movie. It ain't fun. It's a thrilling conclusion, but it is ultimately just horrifically sad and depressing. And it's a great character study in that fact, as well as a great revenge movie, which I think everybody loves a good revenge thriller. It's this great examination of a form of PTSD, of soldiers coming home from war and what it does to them.
It belongs in the great nihilistic 70s film list, if anybody compiles those, and I do. I enjoy that particular subgenre of films where generally nothing turns out well in the end, but boy, it sure was a fun ride to go on. Which, again, is why I'm sort of surprised that we're left with them walking out badly wounded, like you say, shot in the gut. You can, it's Tarantino.
Along with the kneecap, the gut is the most painful area a guy can get shot in. Shit. But it takes a long time to die from it.
If you can find a doctor in Mexico to stitch you up, you might be okay. There isn't much hope for either of these guys, whether they survive this or not, to have a quote-unquote normal life. Who knows, maybe there'll be a Rolling Thunder 2 and we get to see Johnny and Charlie off on another adventure.
God, I hope not. I don't want to. As much as I love these two actors, as little as Tommy Lee Jones says in this, he is so damn good. He's in, a quarter of the movie, a third of the movie, the beginning, and
4 scenes.
Right, but gosh, they're both so great.
So what is happening over at the Cult Movies podcast? You're just getting back into your 3rd season.
I will debut the first episode of season 3 on January 2nd. Yeah, we got recordings in the can, as they say, and lined up all the way through January. And later in the season, Mark, you will be joining me for The Long Goodbye.
Yes.
That'll be a lot of fun. I love talking to people, about these movies, but it's all about Danny Perry over there. So being able to spread the gospel of Danny Perry is what I'm all about.
Well, where can people find you out on the interwebs?
You can follow Cult Movies at Cult Movies Pod on Twitter and Instagram, and then I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at AK Donnelly, AKDONELLY. And then you can read me at fthismovie.com.
Thank you for being on the show, Anthony. Thank you to everybody for listening. And don't forget,
anything can happen when you wake up heavy.
I'll tell you why, lady. Because he's one macho motherfucker.
San Antone, it's really good to see you. It's been a while, but you